Ladies and gentlemen, my second guest to help me nerd out and talk about Batman Day. Everyone, please help me welcome Jonathan Wisniewski.
It's funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
Come here though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Are you ready?
What up, what up?
Yo. What's up, bud?
What's going on?
Not a man. You're on the podcast. Are you excited?
I am very excited.
This is a big deal, bud.
This is a big deal. It's my first time. I've never been on a podcast before, so I'm very excited.
You've never been on a podcast, not even one as famous as the Burrito podcast?
Not even one as this is the most famous podcast of all time, so no.
Oh, wow. Well, I am honored that I can have you on, man. This is exciting.
Well, I appreciate it. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good. This is a new thing I'm testing out, so this is pretty cool. Can you hear this? Hold on.
I can.
That was cool, huh? Yeah, this whole switchboard thing is pretty radical. I'm hooked. It was I don't know, like $400, and I thought it was a horrible investment, but I'm excited about it right now.
That's good, man.
Still a bad investment though. So hey, dude. So I figured if I'm gonna have you on the podcast at any point in our friendship, today would be the day to do it.
Yeah, Batman Day.
It's a big day.
It is a big day. Matter of fact, I celebrated by watching Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, bro, because we just talked about that one too. That's a great one.
We did. I saw it on Netflix, and I was like, I gotta watch it. That was like one of the original Batman movies that I watched as a kid growing up over and over again. So I had the VHS and all that.
So funny. Do you still have the VHS?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just nothing to play it on.
No, I don't have anything to play it on.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's a great movie too. Was there anything like besides that? Was there anything like as a kid Batman related that like made you think to yourself Batman? Like what was the one thing that got you hooked? Because there's a lot of superheroes out there.
I mean, the thing that I always think about, like obviously, you know, when you think of DC Comics, you think of Superman or you think of Batman. You're going to think of one of those two when you think of DC Comics. And when I was a kid growing up, when I would go to bed at night, my parents would put on Nick at Night for me. And, you know, back in the day, Nick at Night had like the old shows that my parents grew up watching, like, you know, I Love Lucy, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And one of the shows that I would always watch that would come on is the old Adam West Batman.
Classic.
Classic. Yeah. Great, campy, just comic book, you know, the wham would come up on the screen when he'd punch people. Just great. And I would watch that all the time at night going to bed. And that was like my first iteration of Batman. I had so many Batman toys, comic books, movies, just even my parents, I can't even remember what Batman it was, but I had this old Batman movie. It was a black and white Batman movie, and it was just like, I don't know, from the 60s or something.
Before West,
and it was
before Adam West.
Yeah, it was before West. It was. I have it somewhere. I gotta find it, but I grew up watching that stuff since I was a kid. So
same, man, same. And what I loved, I think, most about Batman was, and I told this story to a buddy of mine because I had him on the podcast too, but it was when I was a kid, I had that like really shitty like paper Batman mask with like the string that would elastic rubber band that would cut the back of your head, like the horrible one. And,
oh yeah.
And I always used to switch from like what I thought was Bruce Wayne to Batman, but really it would just be me putting on the mask, and I would go in my room and throw on a cape. But what I loved most about Batman was he was like the most human, you know, and he's considered one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic superhero to ever live. And he's been adapted more than, you know, there's been so many adaptations of him more than any other Marvel or DC character. But I loved most that he was human. Like, you had Iron Man that was human, sure, but, you know, Iron Man built a suit, and it was like, you know, it was something that was inhuman. But Batman, I mean, Batman, all he did was he was jumping off buildings. He was fearless. He was, you know, there was no special, aside from his little gadgets, there was nothing that kept him from like he was flying with a cape and that was it. Like there was no special suit.
He literally was the embodiment of I'm a normal human being. You know, his parents got killed in front of him. Then he, you know, went off and did his own thing for a while, and then became this. He wanted to strike fear in the bad guys, and so he came up with he sat there. I was just watching again Mask of the Phantasm. I love how they show the origin of how he's like. You know, when he first started off, he didn't have a costume. He just dressed up with a mask and regular clothes and went off in the night and fought crime. But he, you know, one of the things he said was, you know, this is great. I feel like I have the edge, but I'm not striking fear in my opponents. They're not afraid of me. So what he does is he goes, you know, what's scary? And then he realizes what's scary to him, which is bats. And he turns his own fear into the fear of the bad guys. And it's great because like you said, he's completely human. There's no superpowers. He, you know, and he's fought, you know, every character you can think of in the DC comic universe, including Superman, and won because not only is he, you know, super smart, he's, you know, the world's greatest detective, but he's just fearless. He got rid of his fear. So nothing can stop him.
Right. And he's so relatable too. Like, you know, that's what's great about it is he's this, you know, playboy philanthropist, this rich billionaire. And, you know, as a kid, you're thinking, oh, he's getting all these girls during the daytime. And then at night he's going in, he literally has no fear. So this cat from, you know, 24/7, he's just, not only is he slaying ass, but he's slaying criminals. And he's a normal dude. You're like, I can grow up and be this dude if I wanted to be. And that's what was so crazy about it was he literally took, like you said, that fear that he hated and he turned it against everything else to fight good. And that's just kind of cool. There's something in that where, you know, you don't think about it as you're a kid, but as you get older, you're like, that's why I really enjoy comic books still to the day, like I know you do too. But that's what's something great about comics where when you're reading it, it's normal people that are writing these comics. So they're thinking of these stories. Maybe they got picked on as a kid and they thought to themselves, what if I could fly? What if I could, you know, invent this suit that could do this? What if I, you know, was Batman? Like, it's guys and girls that are writing these comics that are coming up with these stories, but there's something real in it to where it's over like overcoming an rejection or conquering your fears. There's definitely messaging in there. It's not just you're reading pictures. Right, there's something behind each superhero. And Batman in particular, I think there's a lot of history and there's a lot of great stuff behind it that, you know, you can learn a lot from, even as an adult, which is cool.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Speaking of which, have you watched that? It just made me think of that Hulu documentary about Bob Kane and what's his name? Something Finger. Michael. Is it Michael Finger? Damn, I just talked about it. But yeah, it's like the true story. Do you have Hulu or no?
I do have Hulu. I haven't watched that documentary yet though, but I'm glad you mentioned it because it's definitely something that I'd be interested in watching.
Yeah. Just type in Batman and it'll come up. I forgot what it's called. I think it's like the untold story of Batman. But you know, obviously we know Bob Kane to be the main creator, but you know, there's this other guy behind the scenes that essentially really thought of it, and his whole family went to bat for him. And over like 15, 20 years, they got DC to include this guy's name into every single movie and comic book moving forward, even though he passed away.
That's good.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So that was a great documentary. But let's get into like a little bit about movies.
Oh, let's go. That's my favorite topic.
I love how we were talking about. I was thinking the other day when I was like, how is this gonna get, like, I'm thinking of an agenda of how to do this podcast, and the only thing I could think about is I couldn't stop laughing about when we were playing Call of Duty yesterday.
Oh, talking about, just doing the impressions and stuff, dude. It's now I can't. Anytime I think of Batman, first of all, I automatically think of you. Anytime I think of Batman.
Thank you.
So you're the first thing. You're the first person that pops up, and then immediately I think of just doing Joker impressions the whole entire time.
That's great. Rachel, where is she?
Where? Got a little fight in you. I like that. Well, then you're going to love me. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, just the over the top. I love the dark. That's what I was trying to find earlier today to see, because I know at one point they had the Dark Knight on Netflix, but it's off again. So I was trying to find that because I love anytime he hits anybody in that movie. It's just like a giant like like somebody, like, I don't know.
Like we were talking about, it's almost like every person he hits is wearing like thick
Corinthian leather. Yeah. Yeah, like everybody's got a bat suit on, and he's just like nailing like 15 pads every time he hits somebody.
It's great. I mean, that was definitely a great adaptation, which, by the way, if you don't have HBO Max, that needs to be your next investment.
Oh, I got it. I definitely got it.
Because that's where they moved everything Batman and DC onto HBO Max, so you got to search for it, but they have, obviously all the original Batmans, they have all the original Reeves Supermans, and Wonder Woman, and of course they have Dark Knight Rises, all that stuff. So it's all on there. So I'm gonna go ballistic today. I watched Batman and Batman Returns, but the wife is, I think, gonna come home. So I gotta. She left after watching 20 minutes of the original Batman. She bounced.
Such a good movie.
It's a great
Such
movie.
a good movie.
I've made her watched it before because when Batman vs Superman came out, she never, and this was 2015, I think. She never saw any of the originals. So I made her watch.
What?
Yeah, I know. So I made her watch all the originals, and then we saw, because we did everything from Batman all the way to Batman Forever, which was fantastic, and then Batman and Robin, which was awful but also great, and then
Dude, rubber nipples, man, rubber nipples. This is the greatest thing ever.
Rubber nipples, and let's not forget Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was one of the greatest superhero or supervillains of all time.
Time to chill.
Oh my god, that was so great. I can't get over it. Yeah, what was it? When he goes time to chill, and he goes, oh yeah, he goes, you guys are acting all crazy. Be cool.
Oh, dude, my favorite part of that is at the very beginning of the movie, Batman and Robin get into that. They're in the museum, and they're in that huge fight. They have no idea who Mr. Freeze is. They don't know that he has the ability to freeze anything. They freeze the entire floor of that museum, and they just click their heels together, and they got ice skates on the bottom of their feet just like that. And I'm like, what the hell?
Isn't this
who would
the
think of
first
that?
time that you saw Mr. Freeze? How do you know how to bring skates?
Yeah.
This is madness.
Is this? Are we watching Inspector Gadget? Go Gadget Bat Skates? What's going on here?
That's so true. But yeah, so I made her watch all that, which that was hard for her to handle, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And then, of course, we got into Christopher Nolan, which there's nothing wrong with any of those. And then I was like, okay, now you're ready. Now you're ready to go watch Batman vs Superman. And, of course, we watched Man of Steel on top of that, too. But, I had to get her ready. So, of course, I tried to make her watch it today again, and she's like, I can't. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Jack Nicholson is about to really go hardcore and to be in the Joker. This is the best part.
So good.
So good. Fantastic. I forgot how great he was in that. I mean, I knew he was great, but just everything from when he first figures out that he's deformed and he's getting that surgery, just that laugh walking away was chilling.
Yeah. Dude, Jack Nicholson is, I don't care what role he plays. I mean, even in Anger Management, which is a comedy, he's a scary guy. He scares me. Anytime I think of Jack Nicholson, he creeps me out.
It's terrifying.
But it's great. It's great. It's great.
Even in Something's Gotta Give, he was terrifying.
Oh yeah, yes.
That romantic comedy. But yeah, so that was great. So I'm spending most of the day doing that. But what do you think about? Because of course HBO Max, I mainly got it for the Snyder Cut. But what do you think about Affleck coming back? Are you stoked?
Oh, dude, so that's funny because I think you and I were talking about this not too long ago, but because you were asking me about the trailer for the Batman, and yeah, I know. And I gotta say, at first, and this happened when I heard about Ben Affleck being Batman. At first, I was like, you know what, this is gonna be stupid. Who would think that Ben Affleck's gonna be a good Batman? And then I saw him as Batman, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm an idiot. That was he's great. And then I did the same thing with Robert Pattinson. When I first heard the announcement that Robert Pattinson Twilight was going to be Batman, I was like, no, I can't. I'm not going to watch this movie. And then I saw that trailer and I go, okay, never mind. I'm just going to shut up and stop judging it before it happens because it's great.
So true.
And I'm, with the Flashpoint and all that they're talking about, and having Michael Keaton come back, Ben Affleck's coming back, Robert Pattinson's going to be there. I mean, I'm excited for all of that. Just having all the Batmans. I personally wouldn't mind seeing George Clooney back in there.
Yeah, might as well. Fuck it. Get him in there. I mean, Val can't handle it. Val's hurting right now. But yeah. But you know what I was thinking was Val could be cool if they don't. In a perfect world, I would love to see Michael Keaton go Flashpoint, and then next movie would be Batman Beyond. He's the older Bruce Wayne that's super injured that can't do anything, so he passes it off. And then he's got the cane and he's super crippled. And I would love to see Michael Keaton go into that. But worst case scenario, I wouldn't mind seeing one of the other guys like a Clooney or a Val Kilmer super old in a Batman Beyond movie. I think that'd be rad.
I really hope that they're coming out with a live action Batman Beyond movie at some point, because I mean, you have to. First of all, you've already done this much so far, but when that happens, I just hope they do it right. Like they gotta. I don't even know who they would cast as Terry McGinnis, but
it'd be tough.
Yeah, it would, but I would definitely. I mean, like you said, I would have to see Michael Keaton go into the role of old Batman. There, that would be the kicker for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping these cats at DC think. Typically, they're known for not thinking so far ahead, especially when it comes to contracts, which is why we're in this shit show as it is.
Right.
But like Christian Nolan did it best with Christian Bale because he knew it was going to be 3. That was it. So he signed a contract for 3. But when they did Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, they signed these 1-year deals, which is idiotic. So hopefully they're starting to learn a little bit. But I'm hoping when they sign this Flashpoint, Michael Keaton comes back, they at least got him in for one more movie. Would be nice, because then they could toss him in as a cameo, maybe in another Flash movie or in a Batman Beyond movie. Would be cool.
Yeah, no, well, and I'm hoping, because I don't know if have you watched the Flashpoint Paradox or the Flashpoint movie on? I think they had it at one point. They had it on Netflix, but they actually have the animated Flashpoint movie. Have you ever seen it?
Oh no, I haven't.
Okay, I think it's on Netflix. But I can't remember exactly, but it's on there. I think it's Justice League Flashpoint something. It's either a one. I can't remember if it's a 2-part or a 1-part. But go watch it because it's great. It's rated R.
Ooh.
Lots of good stuff going on in there. And in that animated movie, old Batman, at one point they go through the paradox. They're in this other, they go through this different time thing, and they run into Terry McGinnis with old Batman there. And that's what I'm kind of hoping, that in this live action version, that the reason they're bringing Michael Keaton back is because he is going to be old Bruce Wayne with a Terry McGinnis there to play a Batman Beyond. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's the reason they're bringing him back, but that's what my hopes are, because in the animated movie, that's what happens.
That would be sick. And even if he's not dressed, in a suit, it's just Terry McGinnis would be sick. And that way it kind of sets us up for like an origin too.
Yep.
In the next movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, I definitely need to watch that though. Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah, but I'm all about it. I mean, I was talking to my buddy who's a big Batman fan too, and he's like, and I agree with him. I'm always, and I think you're this way too, we always kind of prejudge because we have high hopes for Batman, but at the end of the day, it's like anything DC related or even Marvel related, anything comic booky, if it comes out, we're stoked, because as long as they do it right, but sometimes you have those high hopes and you don't want it to get crushed. That's
right. And that's why that's the same, like anytime we hear about anytime we hear about a new Batman, everybody starts, we start comparing it to our favorite Batman. And that's what happens. The same thing with like the Joker, of course. Anytime I think of Joker now, I'm always comparing it to
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. And I'm like, if it's anything, unfortunately, he did such a good job that he built up those high expectations. So now, anytime somebody else comes in the role, I'm like, well, is it gonna be, are we Are we getting a Suicide Squad Joker, or are we getting like a Heath Ledger Joker?
That's right. Yeah, and it is so true. I mean, because but again, that was built up so much that Jared Leto never stood a chance, No. And, I think that was the problem of introducing him in Suicide Squad, is because that was such a different, like, it almost felt more Batman and Robin, like, than it did Tim Burton. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was more flashy, glow-in-the-dark bullshit, which I thought DC understood that. No one likes that anymore. But for some reason, they went to that. So I'm excited about the James Gunn reboot. I think that's going to be great. But I think if you gave Jared Leto a full movie with Batman and Affleck, I could see them interacting a little bit different. Give him some wings, to actually fly around. I think it could be good. But they just tried to go too gangster with it. Like, I don't know if they thought that that's how the crime world is now. But if you watch all the Killing Joke is a great example. If you watch all that stuff, it's more like Italian mafia Joker, where he's taking over the mafia. So you don't really see that. I mean, aside from, Heath Ledger's Joker, I think that's why it was so great, was because he came into the mob and he almost like took over the mob and was a gangster, but he wasn't really a gangster. He was like that anarchist that, we all know.
Yeah, he was just doing it because some men just want to watch the world burn.
That's right. That's right. And then Jared Leto just comes in fucking like Mr. Freeze out of right field. It's like, bro, what are you doing? But I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It should be interesting.
Because, anytime I think of Batman, I also think of the Joker. And, going back to the animated series, Kevin Conroy as the voice of Batman and Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker is what I grew up with. And so, in my opinion, when it comes to the voice of the Joker, nothing will ever compare to Mark Hamill to me. And I almost wish there was a way to make him a live action Joker somehow, which would be great in the Flashpoint series. They could totally do him as like an old Joker or whatever, because hearing that voice is just like shrilling. Like, you and I have both talked about playing the Arkham series, and just playing through what is I wish was a live action movie, which pretty much is. When you're playing through the game, all the cinematics and everything come into some kind of almost like live action adaptation of a rated R animated series Batman, which is amazing. You've got, just the shrilling laugh of Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, and then all the iconic characters from the animated series. And they're all voiced pretty much more or less by the same voice actors that played them in the cartoon. That's great. DC, at least on their video game and animated properties, they did very, very well there.
Oh, yeah.
And I watch a lot of their animated movies, and they're rated R. A lot of them are, because they've got blood, violence, cursing, all kinds of great stuff in it that, we as adults love. And I just don't understand why they can't translate those
to live action,
movies and to live action. It's like, you guys see you're doing so great over here. Why are you not translating this into a live action movie? Like, you're just, unfortunately, I think because of Marvel's success, DC did a lot of, we have to play catch up, and they tried way too hard to rush everything. And that's why we got things like the Suicide Squad, where things didn't really make sense, and stuff like that. But they tried to introduce too many people's origins without having an origin story. We had Man of Steel, and then we went right from Man of Steel to Batman versus Superman to Justice League, which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed those movies. They got a lot of hate. I have my gripes about them, but I still enjoy them, because at the end of the day, I'm a comic book fan and I love watching comic book movies.
For sure.
But DC Universe kind of needs a nice reboot right now, and I'm hoping with what they're about to do with all these, that this is what they kind of do, and realize, hey, we don't need to don't play catch up with Marvel. Let Marvel do their own thing. Marvel had their 10 years of fame and did their thing, and now they've kind of flatlined a little bit because of their property. Now that, Endgame is over, that was like the the climax. So now we're back to zero again. So
and
take this opportunity.
And now Disney has taken this, so Disney's going to put their stupid spin on it, like they do with Star Wars, and it's going to end up having to reboot everything. And that'll be a different podcast we can talk about. But it's so funny how this is the time DC could shine. Like,
right.
They can have so many different universes out, and you see it happening. And what's so great is, to your point, not just animated, but they've done great with animated series and movies and shows and even comic books. Obviously, they still do fantastic on that. But their TV series, you look at like Gotham, great series.
Yeah.
You look at Flash, fucking awesome, where especially when they introduced, I love how they did almost like a little Flashpoint, which was pretty sick. Did you see that one where they brought in Miller and all that?
So I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't touched any of the.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I haven't. Well, that's okay. I mean, when I read up on this stuff online all the time, so I kind of like cheat and do the the short version and I have seen the scenes and whatnot, but I haven't watched any of the DC shows, and that's bad on my part because I heard that they're really good. I think I hated the Marvel shows so much that
totally
that it kind of I just stopped doing the Netflix series for different different shows and all that.
Well, and they've done something pretty cool, I think, with especially with Gotham in particular. That's probably one of my favorite. I would say shows in general. Like if I could pick a show, like I love Blacklist, as like a drama, which is a great show with James Spader, who's a genius. And then you have a lot of other shows, but Gotham to me is like an all-in-one. It's almost like the first couple of seasons are kind of like cheesy, but they're almost like they feel like Batman Forever, that type of like fun without the neon lights and bullshit. But the introduction of the characters is fantastic, and if people haven't seen it, from like the 5th episode, I think, is when they start really introducing people. But Edward Nygma is like a crime scene investigator at the Gotham PD. But like they say Edward, episode 5, and then they reference him the entire time, and he doesn't really show up to the Riddler till like season 4, but the whole time you see him in 4 seasons like transition into the psychopath. And it's pretty cool to watch because they make little references, like they go to Arkham Asylum and someone shouts out hey Zaz, and that's the only reference you get for that episode. Right.
So it's just like little hints and little Easter eggs here and there. That's cool. I have seen a couple episodes. Oh, I should say more than a couple episodes of Gotham.
But that type of
going
stuff
back
is,
some.
Yeah, that type of stuff is cool, and that's what's great about like those type of shows, and even the movies that you see with Joaquin was just a great that was just an unbelievable movie. But you could see that going off into like a totally different direction where there's 3 movies maybe, and it's this totally different universe. So I'm okay with, just like comic books, I'm okay with having like 17 different universes. I'm not picky. Marvel, I think, is great at taking Iron Man, who started it all, and creating this whole universe around one character, which was great to watch in 10 years. But I kind of like how DC's doing it, though, because I think they've figured out, what their nut is, and their nut is give us content. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense as long as it's good. As long as it's good content, that's the key. Unless their plan ultimately, I think, is to bring in Flashpoint and maybe connect all these universes and maybe do, more. I heard Henry Cavill just signed a 3-year deal, or a 3-movie deal, excuse me.
My God. Thank God.
Yeah, that just came out the other day, so I was stoked about that. So he'll be in 3 movies plus cameos, so I think he'll probably do like Man of Steel 2, Man of Steel 3, and then, of course, Justice League, and then maybe Black Adam. He'll show up in the Rock's movie, which would be sick.
I hope so.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm excited. As long as the content is there and it's good content and they just keep putting it out, I think that's the key. But yeah, people don't need to be so picky. That's the one thing that upsets me the most is like, let's wait to see what happens, because I've been pleasantly surprised. There's only been a couple times where I'm upset. Suicide Squad being one of them. I think that forever in time, that will be like forever in time be the staple. But I loved how they did like it wasn't an origin, but it was like Batman showed up every time they introduced the villain when they did those flashbacks, and it was Affleck. Like,
yeah,
that type of stuff is cool, man. But I don't need a fucking little, premature, 30-second clip. Like, I need a whole movie with Will Smith and Ben Affleck going at it. You know?
Right? Yeah. No. That as soon as I saw that part too, I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh my god, this would be like, I want to see a movie where with these two just going at it the whole movie. I don't want 30 seconds of Batman stops him in an alleyway and stops him in front of his daughter, and daughter's, no, don't do it, Dad, and there it is.
That's it. Come on. That's all you're giving me? And then, oh, dude, what got me super hard was Batman when he jumps on top of the Lambo when it's
Oh,
Jared Leto
yeah.
and Harley Quinn. That is fucking... But you know what pisses me off? I read somewhere that they never met. Like, they were never in the same room, Ben Affleck and Jared Leto, doing that scene. Like, it was always stunt drivers. And then they did everything about a green screen. So that's what upsets me the most is, like, at least give me that. That is the most iconic part of that. Like, everyone saw, they're like, oh my God, is the whole movie going to be like this? And then we never see that again. It's
right.
Like, come on.
Yeah. That was it. You don't see the Joker and Batman go at it again. And by the way, I get it. Suicide Squad, not a Batman movie. It's about the Suicide Squad. But how is all this going down in a city and Batman just nowhere to be seen?
That is a good point. Yeah, like he ended up putting away all these criminals. What? Criminals?
Criminals.
All these criminals, and he put them away, and then he bounced, and then all this shit started happening again. And is this when he's off, like, hanging out with Henry Cavill? Is this what? Like,
like, what's going on? Is this? Are we don't even know what Batman timeline we're technically in, because we see BatFlick in there, right. But we don't know, is this like after he retired? Is this before the Superman thing happened? Is this after the Superman thing happened? Like, the timeline, what's going on?
And maybe he's like one foot in one. Maybe he's like just at home at this point, like drinking whiskey, like he's just upset about what's happening. He's like,
the whole world's exploding, and he's like, I don't care.
He's like, I'm done. I was supposed to retire after this whole Justice League thing, so I'm just gonna fucking half-ass this. Yeah. I
am really excited for the Snyder Cut.
Oh,
yeah,
dude, it's one of the only reasons I got HBO Max was for the Snyder Cut. And I don't know have you been following like some of the sneak peeks and some of the
I haven't watched the I saw yesterday that they they have the trailer out, and I haven't watched it yet, but
it's incredible. It's
going to be good,
because the whole trailer just shows the unseen footage that they already shot, and then they're going to reshoot stuff. So I mean, I think they're going to from what I've been reading, like, and what they said at Fandom, I think they're gonna reboot the whole thing essentially. Like, he's gonna do 4 hour, or he's gonna do an hour episode, 4 episodes, and it's gonna be one movie. But you can binge it, or you can watch it all at once. So he's gonna separate it like 4 episodes, and each one's gonna be an hour and 10 minutes. But I think he's gonna pretty much reboot the whole thing. Like, he's gonna include, all these little hints to future movies. And, of course, like Henry Cavill and things like that. So I think the ending, we're going to see a lot more Henry Cavill and potentially going off into that Man of Steel 2, Man of Steel 3 type of movie. And then I heard Affleck might even do an HBO Max series. I heard they're in talks of that as well, which would be sick. And, yeah, dude, just a lot going on, man. So it is kind of weird, though, because, we're in our 30s. Or how old are you? You're 30, right?
Oh, yeah, 32.
32, that a boy. So yeah, we're in our 30s, and it's a really exciting time to be alive in general. There's a lot of craziness going on, but I mean, imagine if we were in our 30s, like back in the 90s. Shit wouldn't be as cool. Like,
no.
Like, there's so much. Like, I just wasted a couple $100 on this ridiculous Batman gaming chair. Like, this didn't exist 20 years ago.
No, I remember how excited you were when it gets. Yeah,
oh my God,
good stuff.
But dude, I mean, this type of stuff, and then now we're getting a new Batman. Like, not a new Batman movie. Like, we're getting a new Batman like every 18 months. It's like a new series, or it's a new, it's just overall. There's just so much cool shit going on. It's fun, man.
Oh, I agree. I definitely would not want to be 30 in the 90s. That's for sure.
No, yeah, there was nothing.
I'd be too old right now.
Yeah, you didn't even have a phone. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And what's even more crazy, like when we're in our 50s, there's going to be so much cool shit still. Like, They're going to be on Batman movie number 35 at that point. It's going to be sick.
Are we already? What Batman movie are we on?
Shit.
Are we already like up there?
It might be pretty close. Yeah, you're probably right. So, what do you think? How many Pattinson movies do you think we're gonna get out of this? Because the trailer.
I don't know, man.
The trailer was rad.
I hope we're getting at least 2, because I don't know how much more of this you get. One Batman, then you get a. We didn't even get a standalone. Originally the Batman was supposed to have Ben Affleck in it. That's they had to redo the whole thing, obviously, because of what he was going through and whatnot. But I don't know how many more of these. Here's a little bit of this Batman, and now you're going to get a totally new Batman I can take, because I just want some consistency for a little bit.
That's right.
So I'm hoping at least 2.
At least 2 would be cool. Yeah, 2 would be cool, and then if we can get some little side verses going on, that would be cool too. Right.
And when I say 2, I don't mean, here's the Batman and then here's Pattinson in somebody else's movie. I mean 2 standalone Batman movies with Robert Pattinson in it.
At least. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, we got to get, because I think Nolan did it right. You know what I mean? Like, that was the...
Oh, perfect.
I mean, that's what you want to do.
Right.
Because it was built up. It had, obviously, the origin story was fantastic, and it was good, and it's something that... you read in the comics, but you haven't seen, obviously. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, because the only origin story we really saw was not even an origin story. We've never had that. So Michael Keaton, obviously, you have Batman, then you have, Batman Returns, and then you have. Batman
Forever. Begins. You had a good origin story there. They show you, his whole.
Yeah. But what I mean is, like, before that, though, there was no. It was It was just flashbacks,
correct.
Of his parents getting killed. That was it. So this was like the first time ever, and I think it was done with Ra's al Ghul. Like, I mean, it was fantastic. Just the way it was done was gorgeous and very cinematic, a lot different, darker, but it was also, it had that comic humor that it needed. And then, of course, The Dark Knight, by far probably my favorite Batman of all time.
100%.
And it was so great because, again, it was all content. It was very long. Like, it was, I think, close to 3 hours. And it was a super long movie. Yeah, my only regret, I would say, is at the end, I would like to see Aaron Eckhart stay alive as Two-Face, because I thought he was fantastic.
Well, and
as Two-Face.
That's what I was going to say about the Nolan Batman series. Is the cool thing about that is, it was, you get the beginning, then you got the middle part, and then you've got the end, literally, in a 3-movie series. Mm-hmm. And it left you wanting more, which is great because he did his job right. But the point of it was to make, and I love this, a realistic Batman. This wasn't a comic book Batman. This was real life Batman. This could happen in real life. This is the scenarios it would be. None of the characters were comic booky at all. They, it wasn't anything over the top. It was real life Batman done in the best way possible. And that was the purpose of it, which I appreciated for that, because, like you said, it would have been nice to see one of the characters, like Two-Face, stay alive at the end, but he knew that he was finishing it on that 3rd movie and that those characters weren't going to be used again.
Right.
Obviously, the Joker probably would have been used again had, unfortunately, Heath Ledger not, passed. But,
yeah, very true.
And I'm sure even then, because we never truly see, they don't show any burial scene or anything like that with Two-Face. So I'm sure had Heath Ledger not passed, there would have been a whole nother thing that they could have done with that. But, they worked with what they had, and I think they did a very good job with it by doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it was great. Yeah, my only criticism, I would say, and again, this is me obviously being critical about versus the comic books, but I got over this pretty quick, is what I loved most about that trilogy, like you said, it was real, and it was Batman like if it happened today. Like,
right.
No sci-fi bullshit. This is today. Because, I was talking to my buddy about this, and he's like, yeah, but I wish Tom Hardy was a little bit more jacked and he was full of juice. And I go, yeah, but see, here you go. No, that's not the tone of the film. You know, this is not, you know, I think it was Batman and Robin, right? Where it was Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, and she
Oh my God. And the
Remember that?
Bane who's just
out of control,
like
unnecessary.
that was comic book Bane.
That was comic book Bane. And again, nothing wrong with that because that was the tone of the film. So I get that. But if Nolan did that, that's what I loved about Tom Hardy is I thought he played a great Bane because it wasn't supposed to be all jacked up in chemicals. It was just a normal dude that was beefy, a little beefy.
Yeah.
But he was a normal guy. Like he was a normal guy,
Right.
and he went through the same, you know, Ra's al Ghul training, and you know, it all tied together, and it was just gorgeous. But you know, this is where it comes into like you can't think about the comic books when it comes to the movies, and vice versa. You can't think of the movies with the comic. Like you have to kind of take the tone of the film, and you know, you have to say they're narrating a story and they're telling a story, and you just got to hop on board with it. You know, like Joker. I think if I remember correctly, I was reading an interview about him and Todd Phillips. They were doing an interview together, and they're like, "Why is his name Arthur Fleck? You know, what comic book was that? You know, derived from?" And he goes, "No comic book. You know, Arthur Fleck wasn't the name of Joker. I just made that up." And they go, "Really? Why didn't you grab something from a comic?" He's like, "Because this is not from a comic. This is
Right.
multiple sources, and I created a story, and it's a story that we haven't seen, and
It's an original.
It's an original story.
And that's one of my favorite things. And I always say this when people complain about, you know, Marvel movies, DC movies alike, whenever they say, "Oh, well, this doesn't follow the comic book." And it's like, well, yeah, of course it doesn't follow the comic book. That story's already been told. You can go read the comic if you want to see that story. What's the point of, you know, Marvel did it great because they follow the comics, but then they would throw in little twists here and there where like, this person's supposed to be bad, but they're not. And we changed this because, you know, if we did everything exactly like the comic, you would already know what happened. So what's the point of, you know, adapting a comic book into a movie, you know, page by page, if you already know that story? There'd be no surprises. There's no elements there to keep you on. You're like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen because that's what happened in the comic book. Right. So I always,
because these companies are trying to get you to go to the movie theaters and spend $20 on tickets and $50 on popcorn and drinks. Like if you already know what the movie's about, you're not going to do that. So
no, if I read a review from a critic and it says, well, this is a perfect adaptation of a comic book to the movie because it goes word for word exactly how the comic book goes, I'm not going to go spend $20 at the movie theater because I already read the comic. I already know what happens. I don't want to go watch that.
That's right. Exactly. No, I think they definitely, they're doing it right for sure. Like I hope Todd Phillips is on board with more Jokers, and, you know, I hope Matt Reeves continues to do more Batmans, because I think from the trailer, from what, you know, we talked about it, but just the tone of the film is very Arkham style, which I'm obsessed with. And
oh yeah,
and I think if it's more detective like, which it kind of seems almost like, without sounding stupid, you know, it's almost like Special Victims Unit in Gotham.
Right.
In Gotham, right? And I'm totally fucking on board with that. If he's fighting people up in between that, and we're introducing characters, because that's kind of how like Gotham is. So I think you'd get a kick out of watching that whole series come to be, because, you know, Batman doesn't show up until the last episode.
Right, and I did see the last episode. Again, I cheated,
which is great though.
And right,
but during the whole series, it's Commissioner Gordon, who isn't the commissioner yet, obviously, and then the kid, Bruce Wayne, and he's behind the scenes solving these crimes, and it's really interesting to watch. And we really haven't seen that in like a legit live action movie. It's always been the, you know, I don't want an origin story. I love the fact of what they're doing. It's year 2, and he's starting to build up the Batcave, which is sick. And, you know, it's gritty, but it's also like new, and he's also being this detective, and he's helping out the police, and it's going to be cool, man. I hope they don't do one and done. It better be like a legit Nolan, at least 3.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping, and I'm thinking they're all on board with that too, because they're all probably thinking like, yeah, we better not screw this up again. But I mean, to your point, you're right. You know, I want to see more detective work in this movie, because that's what Batman is, the world's greatest detective. He's supposed to be, you know, solving crimes, not just, he's not, that's one of my favorite things about watching the animated series. And the animated series, it's, Bob Kane's series, it's perfect because he's literally, you're watching a 30-minute episode where, yeah, he's going to fight some people for a little bit, but most of the time he's sitting there, he's solving crimes, he finds a clue, puts it in the back computer, does all this stuff to figure out what's happening before he goes out and then fights the bad guys.
It's crazy. And that's exactly what it is. And I think I said in the beginning of the podcast is I think the very first time that Batman showed up, and because it was called Detective Comics back then, it was in 1939. Yep. So I think that's what, 81, 82 years?
Yep.
Yeah. So 81 years, and it was called Detective Comics because of Batman, like being the detective. He was going to be the poster child for DC, and he has been ever since then. So,
right.
And we haven't seen that. I mean, aside from the Dark Knight a little bit, when he pulled out the bullet and he did that. Do you remember that scene where he's down in the Yeah. That to me was like, oh, I want like
right.
3 hours of that.
Right.
That's cool shit,
And that's I'm hoping that's what they do with the Batman, because it is supposed to be him solving crimes and then going out and fighting the bad guys. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, dude, stoked. Okay, cool. Well, hey, we're almost at an hour, but I mean, we could talk about this for 3 hours if we wanted to.
Sure.
But it is Batman Day, so I'm glad you came on, and I'm sure you're rocking some Batman swag, just like I am.
Of course.
And we'll of course get into watching more movies, and we'll do all that shit later. Maybe we'll do a little follow up once we get some more adaptations going on. But what do you say we call this quits and maybe hop on and play some COD? You down?
I'm down, buddy.
My dude. Okay, well, hey, for all those listeners out there, how can people find you on social media, Facebook, all that jazz, so people can go check you out?
Well, I do have an Instagram, and it is Wiz, WIZ _ gray _ Jedi. So Wiz the Gray Jedi with underscores in between all the spaces.
So in case anybody needed a reassurance that you are a geek, it's all in the name.
It's all in the name.
All right, Weez, I appreciate you, bud. I'll text you in a bit.
All right, bud.
All right, dude. Later. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to these episodes. I might even split these up into 2 episodes because they were each almost an hour long. So I don't want you to go through a 2-hour podcast, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you geeked out like we were able to. I want to thank Nova on episode 1 and then Jonathan on episode 2. So if you haven't already, do me a favor, shoot them a friend request on Instagram. They're some funny guys, and of course, if you want to know anything geek related, or if you want to hear more about this, shoot me a message. Maybe we'll do more podcasts on this, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a good time. And if you don't already, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. You can go to theberardo.com/the podcast, and I'm available everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Apple, Google, all that jazz, iHeartRadio. So again, thank you so much for the support, and thank you again to our sponsors over at Rainforest Bowls. Be sure to visit rainforestbowls.com. Use the code TheBerardo. You're going to get 20% off your entire order. And remember, for every purchase at rainforestbowls.com, they're going to plant 1 tree in the rainforest, specifically in Vietnam, and they're helping a great cause. They've already donated year to date. They've planted 10,000 trees. So that's 10,000 more trees than you and I have planted. So they're definitely, they're fighting the good fight, and they're helping us all. So be sure to support them by going to rainforestbowls.com. And again, use the code TheBerardo at checkout. You're going to get 20% off. So thanks for always, guys, for tuning in to the Berardo podcast. And until next time, we will see you later. Peace.